Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Children's advocate bemoans lack of support for a child protection framework to deal with cases of child abuse. Nurses seek privilege to write prescriptions. And later in sports, sprinter Julian Fort leaves MVP for Santa Cruz-based track club. I'm Giovanni Dennis and here are the details. The Office of the Children's Advocate is lamenting the lack of support for the child protection framework which deals with cases of child abuse. This after 2 cases of physical abuse, one fatally, were reported in less than 2 weeks. Speaking on Radio Jamaica's Beyond the Headlines last evening, Children's Advocate Diane Gordon Harrison said more support from citizens is needed to prevent recurrences. Sandy Williams reports.
Almost 2 weeks ago, 3 relatives of a 2-year-old toddler were arrested following reports that the child had more than 30 trauma injuries. And 2 days ago, a man was arrested after allegedly beating his 4-year-old stepson with a stick, causing injuries all over his body. Both incidents have sparked the interest of the Office of the Children's Advocate, OCA. Children's Advocate Diane Gordon Harrison says there is a framework in place to prevent these incidents from taking place. However, the support is lacking.
Where we tend to fall down, however, is this see no evil, hear no evil, informer for dead culture, which not only operates in the criminal justice arena, but certainly in relation to the child protection sector. Because the fact is, with a framework without flesh on the bones, we're going to have a deficit. Institutions and social workers are not living in every single community where all of these things are happening.
She says healthcare providers have been doing their part in raising alarm about suspected cases of child abuse, as with the case involving the 2-year-old. However, she says oftentimes it's when the abuse has reached an advanced stage, the child is then taken to seek medical attention. It's why she reasons that the support from citizens is needed to tackle the issue from the early stages.
You can have a very robust framework on paper, but unless you have all the parts with the human element clicking as it should, you're going to have gaps. So we need our citizens, to really answer the call. And if they hear, for example, persistent crying or shouting coming from a house, that's a trigger. Let's err on the side of caution so that the home visits can be done, the assessments can be done, to just see what's happening in that particular scenario.
The 4-year-old boy was taken to the Spanish Town Hospital in St. Catherine, where he later died. He has been identified as Nashawn Brown. Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
A woman and her 3 children have reportedly been placed into protective custody after their house was set ablaze allegedly by her common-law husband in New Green, Mandeville, Manchester on Monday. A grocery shop was also destroyed by the fire. The incident took place about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, residents say earlier in the morning, the couple was engaged in a dispute which became violent. The man left and returned with a container of gasoline, which he used to douse the building, then setting it ablaze. The woman and the children were removed from the community by the police. The Nurses Association of Jamaica is renewing calls for the right to write prescriptions. The association's president, Patsy Edwards Henry, says the change is long overdue. Shamila Pullen reports.
For years, nurse practitioners in Jamaica have been calling for legislation that will give them the right to write prescriptions. Over 100 nurse practitioners are in the island, many of whom assess, diagnose, and treat patients daily. But President of the Nurses Association of Jamaica, Patsy Edwards Henry, says their jobs have been hampered by the fact that they are not able to write prescriptions.
We realized even last week or a week or so ago when our colleagues were not doing so well, the nurse practitioners were at station. However, their jobs were a little bit curtailed because while they were able to assess and diagnose and plan and treat the patients, the patients would now have gone home without a prescription because they did not have the medical doctors to sign off.
She points to nurses in several countries, including the Caribbean, who have the authority to write prescriptions for certain medications.
One of the challenges that we were having is that some of our colleagues were saying that we cannot open it for the nurse to have prescriptive right for all medications. And we reviewed and looked at that, and we accept that we do not just want to open the prescriptive right to all and every medication, but there are some basic medications that we have put on the list that we are asking for approval for those medications. So it is not just a wholesale prescriptive right, it is prescriptive right for specific medications.
The NAJ president says dialogue has started with the various nursing groups and the Ministry of Health, but they have been challenged by several roadblocks.
The Nurses and Midwives Act of 1964 is to be amended to include these practitioners. All of that was done. It actually went to the Parliamentary Council of the Parliament and it was accepted. However, a job scope document was requested. This document was worked on and submitted to the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and we're waiting now on the sign-off of that document.
Mrs. Edwards Henry is hoping good sense will prevail and the nurse practitioners will be able to get prescriptive rights soon. Shamela Pullen, TVJ News.
Meanwhile, the NAJ president gave an update on the nurse migration and wages.
We continue to have nurses leaving our shores. We have been offered the 2.5%. We have written rejecting. We have our proposal ready and waiting to be called by the Ministry of Finance. We have written to say that we are ready to meet and to have the dialogue. We have not yet heard from the Ministry of Finance.
And speaking of wages, the Police Federation has joined the other groups complaining about the government's wage offer. The issue was discussed on Power 106's morning agenda.
The Police Federation and the Nurses Association of Jamaica have deemed the wage offer by the government inadequate. They are urging Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clarke to come forward with details of a new deal. They continue to reject the 2.5% wage increase proposed for public sector workers. Following its outright rejection of the offer in May, the Federation in particular is now calling for quick action from the Finance Ministry, no later than August.
The government prioritizes what it wants to prioritize, and all we seem to say is that we are not being unreasonable. There must be a middle ground.
Chairman of the Police Federation, Corporal Rowan James, continues to press for a better offer because of what he calls the depreciated spending powers of the police.
The constable, who is significantly affected, will be afforded some spending power that they can live in environments conducive that they can carry out their functions as police officers without compromise.
Also in support of an improved wage deal is the president of the Nurses Association of Jamaica, Patsy Edwards Henry. She explained that Level 1 nurses are finding it increasingly difficult to survive.
Right now, the Level 1 nurse, once she leaves school with her degree, she does not qualify for a house. So the Level 1 nurse doesn't see how she can live in Jamaica, raise children. How do we raise children when we have nowhere to live and the salary that we're getting is not livable?
The NAJ president believes a large number of nurses who leave Jamaica for other jurisdictions are doing so because of better living conditions. O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
And it's now time for a break here on the Midday News, but please stay with us. We'll have much more when you return. Welcome back to the Midday News. A top scientist at the World Health Organization, WHO, is warning that the world is shifting further away from the end of the COVID-19 pandemic. During a question and answer session on Monday, the WHO's technical lead on COVID-19, Dr. Maria Van Kerkhove, said the situation is worrying and dangerous. She said in the past 7 days, global COVID-19 cases have gone up 11.5%, while deaths have increased by 1%.
At the regional level, there's varying levels of increases. 20% increase, almost 21% increase in Europe in the last week. A 16.5% increase in Southeast Asia. Almost 30% increase in the Western Pacific in cases. A 15% increase in the Eastern Mediterranean region. We had a slight decrease in cases in the African region in the last 7 days, but I will remind you that over the last several weeks, Africa has had a substantial increase. So it may seem like a slight decline, but they're still at a very high level. In terms of deaths, we've seen increases in 4 of the 6 WHO regions in deaths.
Dr. Van Kerkhove said viral variants, social mixing, the flouting of public health measures, and vaccine inequity are among the factors driving the surge.
We have 4 variants of concern that we're tracking. The latest is the Delta variant, which has demonstrated increased transmissibility, even more so than the other variants of concern that are circulating. And that's happening in the context of increasing social mixing. This is the second factor. Increasing social mixing and social mobility. And the third factor is the inappropriate use of public health and social measures that are proven to reduce infections, to prevent infections, to reduce the spread, and to save lives. And the fourth challenge, the fourth factor that we see is a highly susceptible global population because we have a really gross inequity of vaccine distribution.
And sticking on COVID-19, the country recorded 62 new cases on Monday. The overall case count is now 51,282. This brings the positivity rate to 6.5%. 1 new death was recorded, pushing the death toll to 1,158. Meanwhile, 100 persons remain in hospital. 11 are critically ill. There are 3,046 active cases. All hearings at the Portland Parish Court have been suspended following a strike by staff members this morning over improper ventilation at the facility. The staff members who have to attend court on a daily basis complain that the condition is getting unbearable. It's understood that the air conditioning unit has been down for some time now.
To dress a particular way in jacket and tie, and they want the ladies to make sure you have on jackets or you're wearing, pants. So if your skirt too short, the skirt would be easier for us, because proper ventilation. But they want us to wear proper clothing, and if we're expected to dress in the colonial dress in the tropics, at least give us air condition where we can be properly, we can be relaxed under these circumstances, but it is unfair.
Attorney at law Carl MacDonald says the Ministry of Justice is aware of the matter. However, nothing has been done.
During the circuit court, and the minister looked at it and said that there is money in the budget to fix it, but nothing has started as yet.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness is again insisting that the local government election is not yet on the horizon. Members of the People's National Party have been saying that the government is using the relaxation of the COVID-19 measures as a way to announce the date for the local government elections. Those elections were due last year, but a resolution was passed to extend the time.
The presence here could be interpreted as me campaigning for local government elections. I want to allay anyone who may have such fears, because you will notice that I'm in brown color shoes today. But it is important that we give focus to rural communities, because the government does have a rural development strategy.
The Prime Minister was speaking at the official opening of the Gall Road in Gale St. Mary recently. Still on politics, Mayor of Mandeville Donovan Mitchell has sought to explain the reason for his sudden resignation and about turn last Thursday. In a letter which was obtained by TVJ News last Thursday, Mr. Mitchell told the CEO of the corporation that he would demit office as at 5 p.m. on Thursday, July 15. However, moments later, another letter from the councillor of the Royal Flat Division withdrawing the resignation. Speaking Monday at the changing of the guard ceremony in Manchester, Mr. Mitchell pointed out the reasons for his letters.
I have some officers that are municipal police officers, and I've said to them that every single citizen of this parish has a right, irrespective of what they do. If they sell fish, if they sell clothes, if they do anything that is bad, they have a right, and all must be heard. We had some problems. I think I did put some things in place. Some persons weren't too happy with it, so I said to them, well, I'll step back if you think that I'm not capable enough of managing it in this form, so go ahead. And the sense prevailed, and they said, listen, my boss, that's not what we mean. So you need to stay so that we can have things done properly.
The Clarendon police are seeking the public's help in finding the person who shot and killed a man in Four Paths in the parish Monday afternoon. Reports are that the man and another occupant were in a motor car in a cane field when gunshots were heard. The motor car with the suspected shooter drove away shortly after. Passers-by alerted the police to the scene, and early assessments by investigators suggest the man and his attacker were involved in a physical dispute before he was shot. The man's name is being withheld until his family has been notified. However, the police say he is 32-year-old and of a Portmore St. Catherine address. Police are asking anyone who observed the car or can identify the other occupant of the motor car to contact the May Pen Police or 119 emergency number. And it's now time for the Business Minute. Here's Cody and Barrett.
In the world of business, the Bound Brook Industrial Estate in Port Antonio, Portland, is to undergo major redevelopment in a bid to transform the area into a $1 billion state-of-the-art integrated business complex. At a town hall held on Thursday, Chairman of the Board of the Factories Corporation of Jamaica, FCJ, Littleton Shirley, said the development will change Portland's economic base. It is also expected to attract investors and provide for the integration of all government agencies under one umbrella, along with private sector businesses in an area ideal to foster economic growth and job creation. And in business internationally, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos and his crew successfully completed a space lift on Tuesday, an historic suborbital flight that helps to inaugurate a new era of private commercial space tourism. The flight was 11 minutes and went up more than 60 miles above the Texas desert aboard his space venture Blue Origin and returned safely to Earth. This joyride to space came only 9 days after British billionaire Richard Branson successfully flew to space with his company Virgin Galactic. Blue Origin announced it is open for ticket sales. Those interested in flying on a future Blue Origin flight were asked to send the company an email, but they did not divulge how much a ticket will cost. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Cody Ann Barrett.
Now is a look at the top regional and international stories.
The Caribbean Community CARICOM will be sending an observation mission to monitor the general election in St. Lucia, which will be held on July 26. The mission will monitor the election campaign environment and the voting process, including the opening of the poll, the casting of votes, the closing of the poll, and the counting of ballots. The 10 members of the observation mission will arrive in St. Lucia between July 20 and 22 and will depart on July 28 and 29. At least 43 candidates have been registered to contest the general election. It will be a face-off between the two dominant political parties for control of the 17-member parliament. News on the international scene. ISIS have claimed responsibility for an explosion that ripped through a busy market in the Iraqi capital on Monday. At least 27 people were killed and several others wounded. Children and women were among the dead and wounded. Police officials said a number of shops and stores were also damaged in the blast. ISIS, in a statement, said that the attack was carried out by a suicide bomber wearing an explosive vest. The terror group provided no evidence to support the claim. And that's it for your international roundup. I'm Shamela Pullen.
And we now head to a quick break, but when we come back, Renata Brown will have your midday sports.
Welcome back. It's now time for your midday sports. I'm Renata Brown. The chief of the Tokyo 2020 Organizing Committee on Tuesday did not rule out cancelling the Olympics if COVID-19 cases spiked as more athletes tested positive for the virus and sponsors ditched plans to attend Friday's opening ceremony. Asked at a news conference if the global sporting showpiece might still be cancelled, Toshiro Muto said he would keep an eye on infection numbers and liaise with other organizers if necessary. Muto said they will continue discussions if there is a spike in cases. A spokesman for Tokyo 2020 later said organizers were concentrating 100% on delivering a successful games. There have been 67 cases of COVID-19 infections in Japan among those accredited for the games since July 1, when many athletes and officials started arriving. Rising track and field coach Ronaldo Walcott is now guiding the career of sprinter Julian Fort as he gears up for the Olympic Games in Tokyo, Japan. The 28-year-old has left the MVP track club, where he has been a member since 2011, joining his former teammate Shelly Fraser-Price at Elite Performance. The former Wilmers boy standout has a personal best of 9.91 seconds in the 100 meters and 19.97 in the 200 meters, but has struggled with injuries over the past couple seasons. Fort, who pulled up during the final of the 200 meters at the recent national championships, was named in the team to the Olympic Games. Football now. Reggae Boys head coach Theodore Whitmore could make as many as 7 changes to the team that started their last game as they face Group C leaders Costa Rica in the CONCACAF Gold Cup this evening starting at 6 p.m. TVJ Sports understands Adrian Mariappa, Kemar Lawrence, O'Neill Fisher, Devon Williams, Tariq McGee, Andre Gray and Junior Flemings could be given starts. Those players are expected to join Captain Andre Blake, Damian Lowe, Daniel Johnson and Leon Bailey in Whitmore's starting 11. Though not naming the players, the 1998 World Cup goal scorer did confirm on Monday that changes were coming.
To get the right chemistry, the right cohesion. We're trying to connect from back to middle to forward. It's not there as we want it to. But again, game by game, we want to improve. And the Costa Rica game is nonetheless.
Both teams have already qualified for the quarterfinals, with the onus now on who will finish top of the group. With just one win in their last 11 one-day international games against Australia, the West Indies will go in search of a victory in the ODI series. That's the first ODI starting today in Barbados, and that game comes up at 1:30. However, after a good showing in the 2020 internationals, the Caribbean side is confident of starting with a win. But captain Karen Pollard, who has recovered from a hamstring injury, is focused on getting the basics right, especially the batting.
But in terms of from a batting perspective, that's international standards, 300, 320, 330. So we had started off this quest when we first started a couple of years ago of trying to find the right balance and combination. I think we have sort of found that, and now is a matter to know the next step, which is to consistently hit those targets. So again, as I keep saying, work in progress, and I think we have the personnel within the dressing room to do that. But we still have to go and play each ball on its merit. We still have to respect conditions, and we still have to respect oppositions.
As we said before, the game goes off at 1:30 Jamaica time. And finally, Jamaican Waver Hines will serve at least another term as president of the West Indies Players Association, WIPA, after all members of the executive were returned unopposed at a virtual general meeting on Monday. Another Jamaican in Wayne Lewis joins Hines for a 5th consecutive term as honorary secretary. Nix McLean will continue as vice president, Liam Sebastian as assistant honorary secretary, and Ridley Jacobs as treasurer for the 4th consecutive term. And that's it for your midday sports. I'm Renardo Brown. Giovanni, it's back to you.
Thanks so much, Renardo. And that's how we end the midday news. I'm Giovanni Dennis. Please join us at 7 for primetime news. On behalf of the news, the sports, and the production teams, have a good afternoon.